right here, where there was contact with Joey Logano, contact with Denny Hamlin. There's no contact this year. It's all Austin Dillon. He's going to the playoffs.
Let's go, baby! Who is your daddy? Let's go!
On live TV, Austin Dillon just shocked NASCAR fans everywhere. Right after his Richmond victory, he dropped a bombshell about his grandfather, Richard Childress, the same man who once guided Dale Earnhardt to greatness. But here's the twist. Dillon's win, his words, and Childress' reaction have fans asking if this was just another victory, or the start of a new RCR legacy that could rival Earnhardt himself. Richmond Raceway has always been a place of drama, and on August 16th, Austin Dillon delivered one of the season's biggest surprises. The driver of the number 3 Chevrolet snapped a 37-race winless streak, taking home the Cookout 400. What made this moment even bigger was how Dillon did it. He led 107 of the 400 laps, the most laps the number 3 cars had led since Dale Earnhardt's 1998 Daytona 500 run. Dillon crossed the finish line 2.471 seconds ahead of Alex Bowman, sealing his 6th career win. For Dillon, this wasn't just about points, it was about redemption. Last year, his Richmond win was clouded by controversy. But this time, there was no bump and run, no penalty, no questions, just pure speed and execution. Adding to the drama, Dillon revealed he had been driving with a broken rib for 2 weeks. "This one feels so sweet, man. I love Richmond," Dillon said. The win secured his playoff berth, and it bumped Bowman to the edge of elimination. Dillon's comeback wasn't just a victory, it was a shockwave through NASCAR. After the race, all eyes turned to Richard Childress, the man who built RCR from scratch in 1969 and the grandfather who still stands by his grandson today. Reporters asked the question that stirred the garage. Who was better at Richmond, Dale Earnhardt Sr. or Austin Dillon? Childress paused before answering. His response carried the weight of history. "They both are good at Richmond. I wouldn't take anything away from either one of them. I miss Dale today like the day we lost him. He was a hell of a race driver, that's all I can say there." It was a reminder that no matter how big Dillon's win was, the shadow of Earnhardt still looms over RCR. Earnhardt wasn't just a driver. He was Childress's closest friend, and the man who gave RCR its golden era. Yet Childress's pride in Dillon was clear. For a team owner nearing 80 years old, this wasn't just another victory lane celebration. It was proof that his team still mattered. It was proof that his grandson could carry the torch. Dale Earnhardt Sr. is more than a legend, he is NASCAR royalty. Behind the wheel of the iconic black number, 3-car Earnhardt won 67 races and 6 championships with Richard Childress Racing. Between 1986 and 1990, he captured 4 titles in 5 years, cementing himself as one of the sport's greatest. At Richmond, Earnhardt was a master. He fought, clawed, and battled his way through short-track chaos, always making the number. 3-car a threat. For decades, no RCR driver could match that dominance at Richmond. Until now. Austin Dillon's 2025 win changed the conversation. By leading more than 100 laps and winning clean, Dillon did something no RCR driver had done at Richmond since Earnhardt himself. Fans immediately drew comparisons. Was Dillon writing his own chapter or just borrowing from his grandfather's history book? Dillon knows the weight of the number on his car every time he straps into the number. 3 Chevrolet, he carries Earnhardt's memory. But now, with this Richmond win, he showed he doesn't just race in Earnhardt's shadow. He races to prove he belongs in the same story. In Victory Lane, Dillon didn't just celebrate, he opened his heart. He dropped a bombshell about his grandfather that had fans buzzing. "Well, you look at our organization and there's one rock in the middle of it, and that's my grandfather," Dillon said. "He's always been there. He's always the guy on top of the truck trailer giving his all." For Dillon, Childress isn't just a team owner, he's the anchor that holds RCR together. Even at nearly 80 years old, Childress still walks the garage, clipboard in hand, making calls and motivating the crew. Dillon admitted that one day he'll need to be that rock when his grandfather steps back. "You don't see that from every owner out there," Dillon added. "He's getting older, but he's still a fighter. You just want to fill those shoes as best you can and help when you can." This wasn't just praise, it was a declaration. Dillon knows that one day the weight of RCR will shift onto his shoulders, and after Richmond, he showed he's ready to carry it. Richmond was more than just a win for Dillon, it was a redemption story. In 2024, he shocked the sport by bumping Joey Logano and Denny Hamlin out of the way to steal a last-second victory. NASCAR let him keep the trophy, but they stripped away his playoff berth, calling the move too aggressive. The punishment cost RCR over $3 million in lost playoff bonuses, and Childress himself admitted on Dale Jr.'s podcast that it was one of the toughest blows his team had taken in years. Fans labeled Dillon's win as tainted, but 2025 was different. This time, Dillon didn't need a bump and run. He didn't need controversy. He had the best car, the best pit call, and the best execution. That felt really good. Dillon said, last year hurt really bad just going through the whole process of it. This one feels so sweet. By leading 107 laps and holding off Bowman, Dillon erased the doubts. Richmond wasn't just a victory. It was a clean slate. When the checkered flag fell, the celebration over the radio turned raw, emotional, and unforgettable. Childress shouted, "Weef! Gee, did it! Great job!" Dillon roared back, "Let's go, baby! Who is your daddy?" But then came the line that stunned fans. Childress told crew chief Richard Boswell, "Great call, Richard! You did it the right way this year, buddy. You did it the way you were supposed to do it last year." It was an offhand comment, but it reopened old wounds. Fans remembered last year's controversy. Some thought Childress had just admitted Dillon's 2024 win wasn't legitimate. Others saw it as a proud grandfather finally breathing easy, knowing this one was clean. Either way, it was a moment fans will replay for years. Dillon's bombshell celebration wasn't just about winning, it was about rewriting history. Behind Dillon's Richmond victory is a bigger story, the rebuild of Richard Childress Racing. After a rough 2024, Childress reshaped his team. He hired Richard Boswell from Stewart-Haas as Dillon's new crew chief and elevated Keith Rodden to vice president of competition. Dillon praised Boswell's impact. "Richard Boswell's a heck of a leader. He built an excellent team for us." Together, they changed setups, improved communication, and gave Dillon the confidence to win again. The result? Richmond dominance. As Dillon tied his name to Earnhardt's Richmond legacy, the family itself was fighting over how that legacy should be used. It was a reminder that the Earnhardt story is bigger than racing. It's about heritage, money, and what that name truly means. Richard Childress called Earnhardt and Dillon both good. But to fans, the story isn't finished. Dillon's victory raised a bigger question. Will he always race in Earnhardt's shadow, or will one day fans look back and say, Austin Dillon built a legacy all his own? Everything was normal. Then suddenly a car slammed into the wall. It was quick, scary, and happened right before the playoffs.
You see the 19. Oh! What a save! Oh, no!
What a hard hit for the 19.
Fans were shocked. Big names got involved. People started picking sides. What came next changed things in NASCAR in a big way. It started as just another hard-fought NASCAR race at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. But by the time the checkered flag waved, Austin Hill had gone from playoff hopeful to the center of one of the most talked-about controversies of the season. And Dale Earnhardt Jr.? He wasn't buying the excuses.
NASCAR suspends Austin Hill for intentionally wrecking Eric Almirola, a decision that will have a huge impact on this year's playoff.
The wreck itself was jarring. On lap 91 of the Xfinity Series Pennzoil 250, Austin Hill appeared to hook Eric Almirola in the right rear, sending him straight into the Turn 4 wall. It wasn't just a bump or a squeeze. It was the kind of contact that stops hearts and raises eyebrows. Hill was immediately hit with a 5-lap penalty during the race. He'd end up finishing 34th, just ahead of Almirola in 35th, whose day was done after that violent crash. Initially, that seemed like the end of it. NASCAR had acted, and Hill had been punished. But just a few days later, the situation escalated. NASCAR came down harder, suspending Hill for one race and stripping him of all 21 of his playoff points. Though he was granted a waiver to remain playoff eligible, the message was clear. This wasn't going to be brushed off. That's when the real debate began. Austin Hill, for his part, didn't hesitate to defend himself. Standing in the garage at Watkins Glen, he doubled down on his innocence. According to Hill, what happened at Indianapolis was nothing more than a racing incident. Not only did he insist that he hadn't intentionally wrecked Almirola, he said he'd even shared SMT data with NASCAR to prove it. "I know that when I go to my grave," Hill said, "that it wasn't done on purpose." He wasn't angry, he claimed. He hadn't lost his cool. In fact, if he'd really wanted to retaliate, he said he would have done it somewhere else on the track, turn 1, for example, where he could have moved Almirola out of the groove without risking a violent crash. He believed the data would show it was a mistake, not a malicious move. But that explanation didn't sit right with everyone, least of all Dale Earnhardt Jr. Speaking on his podcast, Dale Jr. Download, Earnhardt Jr. didn't mince words. From his perspective, the incident wasn't just a misjudgment or bad luck. It was avoidable. It was dangerous. And yes, it looked intentional. This isn't a "hey, Austin Hill deserves to be parked, deserves another suspension." This is, though, "Hey, Austin, could you take it easy?"
This isn't the right hook. This isn't a "hey, Austin Hill deserves to be parked, deserves another suspension." This is, though.
He was just getting started. According to Earnhardt Jr., NASCAR's disciplinary system had long suffered from inconsistencies. Penalties often seem to vary depending on the track, the drivers involved, or the severity of the result. But to him, the rule should be simple. If you right hook someone and cause a wreck like that, it doesn't matter where it happens or how fast you're going, you get suspended. Then came the kicker. Earnhardt Jr. made it clear he wasn't buying Hill's version of the story. On a later episode of his podcast, he put it bluntly. Even though he still says that he didn't do it intentionally at Indy, I don't buy it. I don't think anybody does.
This is not the same thing that happened at Indy. Even though he still says that he didn't do it intentionally at Indy, I don't buy it. I don't think anybody does.
That statement echoed through the NASCAR world. It wasn't just a difference of opinion, it was a public challenge to Hill's credibility from one of the sport's most respected voices. For fans and analysts alike, it was now more than just a racing incident. It was a question of truth, accountability, and whether NASCAR was prepared to hold its drivers to a consistent standard. Aric Almirola, the victim of the crash, didn't leave much to interpretation either. He called the incident violent. The implication was clear. This wasn't a mere racing deal, it felt like an attack. The controversy split fans and commentators right down the middle. On Reddit's r/NASCAR community, some fans sided with Hill. They pointed to his calm demeanor, his consistent story, and the data he said he'd submitted. One user even suggested Hill might have genuinely convinced himself it was unintentional, saying, "I honestly believe he has convinced himself it was unintentional. I feel like he mentally overwrote that part of his memory." Others weren't so forgiving. They viewed the move as reckless at best and malicious at worst. They echoed Earnhardt Jr.'s concerns about the precedent it would set if NASCAR didn't take incidents like this seriously. Interestingly, some media members also began to change their tune. A writer from Slicks and Sticks admitted to having second thoughts. Initially critical of Hill, he later said that after watching Hill's interviews and seeing how consistent he was in his defense, maybe the driver really didn't mean to do it. Maybe, just maybe, it was a mistake. But that's the problem with moments like these. Intent is nearly impossible to prove. Unless a driver admits it outright or the evidence is overwhelmingly clear, everything else becomes speculation. That's why Earnhardt Jr.'s comments mattered so much. He wasn't just guessing, he was making a judgment based on years of experience behind the wheel. He's been in those situations, seen those kinds of moves, and knows what goes through a driver's head in the heat of battle. So when he says he doesn't believe Hill, people listen. For NASCAR, this wasn't just about one wreck. It was about setting a precedent. The decision to suspend Hill and strip his playoff points was about more than just punishment, it was a signal to the rest of the field. Aggressive driving is one thing, but if it crosses the line into dangerous, retaliatory, or reckless territory, there will be consequences. Richard Childress Racing, Hill's team, chose not to appeal the decision. That, too, raised eyebrows. If they truly believed Hill had been wronged, why not fight it? Instead, they seemed to accept the punishment quietly. Still, the damage was done. Hill's playoff hopes took a massive hit. Even with the waiver, climbing back into contention would be an uphill battle. More importantly, his reputation took a hit, a mark that could stick far longer than any suspension. For Almirola, the consequences were physical and psychological. Wrecks like that stay with a driver. The violence of the crash, the shock of being turned head-on into the wall, and the lingering question of whether it was personal, all of it adds up. The NASCAR community will keep debating what really happened that day in Indianapolis. Fans will argue, drivers will take sides, and the media will keep digging. But one thing is certain, the conversation isn't going away anytime soon. And as long as drivers are willing to make bold moves and tempers continue to flare under pressure, the line between hard racing and dangerous retaliation will always be a little blurry. Whether Hill meant it or not, he's now part of a much bigger story, one that goes beyond one race or one wreck. It's about trust, judgment, and what kind of sport NASCAR wants to be. Dale Earnhardt Jr. made his stance clear. Now the rest of the NASCAR world has to decide where it stands too. If you want to see more wild moments like this and hear what drivers really think, make sure to like the video, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss what happens next.
Kyle Busch blocks in the 48. Kyle, right rear hanging out, which is legal. I would have loved if I was the 48 that he would have gone a little further in his box, but hey, Kyle Busch did everything he was allowed to do.
Maybe he feels like the 48 got too deep in his box and didn't allow him to get where he needed to get.
I don't know, but I'm going to keep an eye on this.
Watch this as we come back.
What happens when a two-time NASCAR champion reaches his absolute breaking point? Kyle Busch just showed us at Iowa Speedway, and it wasn't pretty. The veteran driver unleashed an F-bomb-filled radio rant that had the entire NASCAR world talking. This wasn't just another heated moment. This was a complete meltdown years in the making. Kyle Busch's Iowa nightmare started before the race even began. Saturday's practice session looked promising. The 40-year-old was running second fastest in his group, pushing his Richard Childress Racing Chevrolet to find that extra 10th of a second. Then, disaster struck. Entering turn 1, Busch felt confident after a strong run through turns 3 and 4. Felt really good in 3 and 4 there, I throttled up, Busch explained after the crash. Car stuck well, and I'm like, okay, the right rear's good, let's go, and drove it off into 1 with a little bit more trust factor in it, and obviously it wasn't there. The number 8 Chevrolet got loose. Busch overcorrected. The car snapped sideways and slammed headfirst into the wall. Flames erupted from the front end as the primary car was destroyed beyond repair. Got a little bit loose and overcorrected and just smacked the fence, Busch said. The crash forced his team to work through the night preparing a backup car. For a driver sitting 81 points below the playoff cutoff line, this spelled disaster. Busch would start 37th, dead last in the field. The psychological impact was immediate. Busch admitted his trust in the RCR cars dropped to 0 after the wreck. I was probably built up to about 75–80% trust. Now I'm back to 0 again, he said. Sunday brought the Iowa Corn 350, and Busch faced an uphill battle from the rear. Starting 37th in a backup car would test every ounce of his championship experience. Stage 1 showed modest progress. Busch nursed the backup machine from 37th to 33rd position. Not spectacular, but survival mode was the priority. Stage 2 delivered the breakthrough. Busch clawed his way through traffic, showcasing why he's a 63-time Cup Series winner. Strategic calls from crew chief Randall Burnett put him in position to capitalize. When the checkered flag waved for Stage 2, Busch had climbed to 5th place, earning crucial stage points. The momentum felt real. The backup car was responding. Maybe this weekend from hell could be salvaged after all. Then came lap 169. Shane Van Gisbergen's spin-off turn 2 brought out the caution flag. Cars flooded pit road for service under yellow. Iowa Speedway's narrow pit road layout created immediate problems. Busch's pit box sat directly next to Alex Bowman's number, 48 Hendrick Motorsports Chevrolet. As multiple cars hit pit road simultaneously, traffic became a nightmare. Busch found himself trapped. The angle required to enter his pit stall created a traffic jam. His awkward entry blocked Bowman's smooth approach to the adjacent pit box. Bowman wasn't happy about the delay, but if he expected an apology from Kyle Busch, he clearly forgot who he was dealing with. That's when Busch exploded. NASCAR reporter Steven Taranto captured the raw audio that sent shockwaves through the NASCAR community. Over his team radio, Busch unleashed a profanity-laced tirade that would become instant legend. Go tell the 48s to fuck off. It's a shitty situation. We all fucking suck. What do you want me to fucking do?" But Busch wasn't finished. He threw his hand out the car window in a gesture clearly directed at Bowman. The message was unmistakable.